Hey, welcome to the current events analysis part of the Yahweh's Renaissance Ministry. Today we're going to be looking into, the current events as outlined by the cuttingedge.org ministry, which, focuses on a biblical interpretation of current events. And, obviously a lot of crazy things happening recently. There's a lot more tensions in the Middle East, Israelis, Palestinians, China, Taiwan conflict. Obviously, there was a response from China with the relationship with the U.S. government and Taiwanese government. That was definitely caused a lot of issues. I believe it was the first time ever that a representative of Taiwan visited, a representative of the Taiwanese government has met with a representative of the U.S. government on U.S. soil recently. So that was a uh, big, issue recently with China. So that's definitely in the headlines right now. So, but what I would like to do is focus on things that are looking at current events from a biblical perspective, and a ministry that I've referred to quite a few times and like that. Sorry, the things like wobbling a little bit, but yeah, okay, I guess we're good. So one thing that I like to do is look at what's happening in the world from a biblical perspective, not just try to stay aware, be a watcher on the wall for just no reason whatsoever. I mean, it's looking at things from a biblical perspective and um, understanding that all these things that are happening, that are coming into fruition, are part of the fulfillment of ancient prophecy. So, uh, but some small part of ancient prophecy uh, becoming fulfilled. So I'm going to switch over and we're going to go through the different articles from Cutting Edge, and it's just from the last few weeks. Unfortunately, I basically was tied up a bit over the past few weeks, so I'm kind of getting back into the I'm back in on the saddle, I guess you could say. So want to look at things little by little. So Roman Catholic Pope deceives billions. So basically, I'm gonna kind of breeze through, and I definitely suggest that getting signed up for these email newsletters that I receive from cuttingedge.org. This is the site up here. Uh, the Cutting Edge Spiritual Insights into the New World Order. I've been following this ministry since 1995, so a pretty long time, almost 30 years. So, um, I definitely I knew the pastor. I went to the same church. I was actually following the ministry prior to realizing that the pastor went to a church that was pretty close to where I live. So I ended up starting to go to that church on a regular basis. And, he's a great guy, Pastor Dave Bay. And, it's very much Baptist oriented, fundamentalist Christian oriented ministry. And that was essentially my background. I look at things from a Hebrew roots perspective at this point, embracing the Old Testament and the New Testament and the different festivals that are from the Torah. So, it's a little different version of the faith. And, but I always feel that, people that are fundamentalist Christians are definitely, like brothers in arms, so to speak. So, or sisters. So, Roman Catholic Pope deceives billions. Francis declares hell does not exist. Pope Francis, hell is not a place. So, this is so I'm really what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, and I've done this before, several broadcasts that I read the newsletters. I'm in uh, the headline news, and then it's up to you to go into the details. So some of the articles are pretty lengthy, but I definitely suggest subscribing to this newsletter and going through the different articles, actually reading the whole article. So this is from going through the last few weeks. So GOP rep introduces a catch-all bill to protect constitutional rights. This bill would nullify and cancel past, present, and future unconstitutional federal acts. So, it looks like there's reps that are still believers in the Constitution and are standing up for it. So this is nice to see things like that. I mean, who knows how this is going to unfold, or maybe it's going to get vetoed, or who knows. But it's nice to see that there are people that are true patriots, true believers in the Constitution, people that understand that America is I basically, a perfect example, a continuation of the Protestant Reformation. It was founded upon the principles of the Protestant Reformation. The First and Second Amendment are the cornerstones of the Protestant Reformation. So, uh, we live in a country that believes in religious freedom and the right to bear arms, and it's a beautiful thing. So, this bill would nullify so Tennessee Rep authors bill nullifying past, present, and future unconstitutional federal acts. Okay, good. GOP rep issues a long overdue warning about our Ukraine arms. We can't make weapons fast enough to protect the United States or our allies and don't have different deterrence in Taiwan. It's become a serious issue that we're giving away all our ammunition and weapons to places like Ukraine and, I mean, really so many other countries at this point that it's it's going to leave us completely compromised in the future, forever invaded. So it's something that I I've been aware of for quite some time, and it's rather unfortunate that by helping other countries, we're putting ourselves in a very, very, very vulnerable position. And who knows, maybe that's the end result because our country is compromised and manipulated by external powers. So we now cannot defend our allies in the short term, nor have containment over China and our threats against Taiwan. The U.S. State Department officially warns Americans cannot safely buy any medications from any Mexican pharmacy. They might well be covered with fentanyl. I don't know. To look into that a little bit more. I don't know. I hope that's not the case because a lot of people do go down into Mexico to buy medication. So Adam Schiff has struck Trump again. Schiff became infamous for insisting that he had the proof, only to cravenly back down. Adam Schiff ranting at Trump about attacking the rule of law goes so very wrong. A variety of liberal, progressive, Soros funded DAs believe that they have 5 reasons to prosecute, jail, and invalidate candidate Trump. Right. So, just wanted to check out that particular article. Want to look at what else we have from Cutting Edge Ministries. Yeah, I find that very rewarding. These articles from this ministry, and I think you would too. And it's nice to look at things from a biblical perspective. Um, just trying to see where the next article is that I missed. All right, there you go. All right, so again, this is from the past few weeks, so maybe it's not absolutely current, but it's relatively current. So, and I urge you to support this ministry, Cutting Edge. They definitely can use any type of donation that you can afford, and I think they would help them out very much. An out of control district attorney bragged for Manhattan maneuvers and indictment on Donald Trump on felonies. Trump indicted. Obviously, people are aware. He was involved in he was indicted recently related to paying hush money to a porn star, Stormy Daniels. It's been all over the news, and who knows? He probably did. It sounds like he did. I'm sure he definitely, did things where he committed adultery. He was married multiple times. He had affairs on the side. I don't know. I I like some things with Trump, because obviously he's representing the conservative side of the equation, standing up against abortion, things of that nature. But I really thoroughly believe he's completely compromised and he's just a pawn of the New World Order, and that's pretty much it. And but he's been able to galvanize a certain sect, or a certain part of the population to the nth degree, and make it work. But at the same time, I don't know. I just think he's completely manipulated, completely compromised, and he's just um, uh, doing things that are helping to ultimately dismantle this country. And who knows? But see what happens. But Trump was indicted for a hush money paid to porn star. America's descent from world superpower to banana republic is at hand. Godless EU is created in a system of criminalizing physical cash. EU pushing the criminalization of physical cash, new anti-money laundering law. Okay. So ultimately, steps being taken to implement the mark of the beast. I mean, obviously, the mark of the beast, if people believe it to be a microchip, which I believe that's the case, would eliminate actual physical cash. So that's to me, that's the end of freedom. When you have no more physical cash, when you cannot, um, take your money out of the bank and your money is just a number on a screen, then everybody is in a it's going to be in a very, very bad position at that time. So, any movements in that direction are just another step in the implementation of a global cashless economy and the mark of the beast, which we won't be able to buy or sell based on the book of Revelation, without getting the mark of the beast associated with the forthcoming anti Messiah that will rise the power to rule the world. So almost one half of a billion people have died last century after guns were seized. Well, I mean, if you're gonna take over a country or a population, I mean, why wouldn't you want to seize their guns? To outlaw things like gun ownership, because if you have a fully weaponized population, it's a lot more difficult to deal with than a population that has no weapons whatsoever. So instantly, even though the Nashville shooter was identified as a female, transgendered, everyone began talking only about seizing guns. Americans say acceptance of transgenderism has gone too far. Okay. From the instant that Israel was given her land back by Yahweh, Israel's very existence was threatened by godless men. So Yahweh had to protect them 5,000 years ago. And the reason was the Jewish people was given the Holy Land by divine right. Israeli ambassador says at mock Seder held at UN. Seder would be the Passover Seder service. Okay. So, again, we're seeing very, very intense uh, very intense situation in Israel right now. Every year, it's pretty much the same thing. There's a lot of tension between Muslims and Jews in living in Israel, and Christians are definitely caught up in that. There was a lot of people go to Jerusalem this time of year. Obviously the feast of you had the Muslim holidays, and then you have Passover, and it brings a lot of people, pilgrims to Israel. Ramadan and Passover ultimately leads to tension, clashes on the Temple Mount, which happened recently, and it's it's a problem, and it's not easily resolved, and it's anyway, it's very unfortunate, but everything's said and done, there will be an ultimate resolution, and it's not going to be pretty. All right, a little bit. There we go. Not sure what happened there, but watchdogs are sounding the alarm. FBI is stripping gun rights. Watchdogs raise concerns about FBI stripping gun rights from citizens. All right. Biden is to issue order to strengthen gun background checks. Biden is plotting a serious gun seizure campaign. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's the one thing that stands between freedom and enslavement, or complete and total manipulation of a population, is things like gun rights. If you were able to defend ourselves and not become just a manipulated, something, a pawn in the hands of the government, which a lot of countries all over the world are, have total control over their populations. And they have seized guns. They've eliminated gun ownership in different countries, and it's a bad situation. It leads to very bad situation. Then you introduce different forms of government like communism, and it really just destroys civilization. So people should stop trying to attack every aspect of America's culture, because we represent and symbolize a form of society that has worked and has worked to sustain freedom. Look at any communist country where people, they're just punished on a regular basis. I mean, places that have forms of like secret police, and uh, people are just oppressed. Their souls are repressed. It's a very, very sad thing. So between 1950 and 1995, governments who persuaded citizens to surrender their guns murdered up to 90 million people. Places like Germany under Hitler, or China under Mao Zedong, um, whatever, under Stalin, Russia under Stalin. Hitler killed his tens of millions, but the anti-Messiah is prophesied to kill 4 billion, 66% of the reduction of the human population. So President Biden earns a strong 10-point Pinocchio as he lies again. Okay. According to Biden, the banking system is safe. It's safe. All right. Well, I mean, the regional banks, as a result of the failure of the Silicon Valley Bank and the Signature Bank and First Republic Bank, I mean, it's really, kind of reminiscent, really, of 2008. If anybody listening lived through the 2008 financial crisis, it was almost like a house of cards. I mean, I worked in finance at the time. I mean, I looked around and there was 80 different banks and lenders that we were associated with at the time went out of business pretty much within 6 months to a year. So, seeing banks fail is pretty crazy. Credit Suisse and Deutsche Bank, I mean, having massive issues and failing. And globalists, socialists speak of creating 15-minute cities into which humans are to be forced. I'm not sure what that means. Or was that 15-minute walk cities? Trump's call for building freedom cities plays right into globalist plan for fourth industrial revolution and control grid. Okay. Really not sure. I definitely need to read that myself. Donald Trump speaks of creating freedom cities, which is the same mechanism for forcing citizens to live in areas not their choosing. Okay. Forcing citizen. Okay. Rewilding cities was the 15. Not really sure, but I have to take a little further look into that. I mean, again, feel free to read these articles that I'm going over. Oxford County counselors to introduce trial climate lockdown in 2024. This is some book Christian perspective on the environment, how the Catholic Pope and other leaders are uniting the world's religions through environmentalism. Okay. One thing to put into perspective, and in some ways, I would consider myself an environmentalist. I believe in things like recycling, and obviously, being a good custodian of the planet and the resources of the planet, and none of that is bad. But realistically, when things like climate change and any environmental situation or some natural disaster that happens that's being used to as a weapon to to do more things along the lines of population control worldwide and changing things in society and changing all the laws in society, and it to me it's an abomination, and it's just another mechanism or weapon to for global population control and ultimately implementing laws that will, restrict our freedom and, and institute, all kinds of new age philosophies in our everyday lives. And it's unfortunate, but it's happening on a regular basis. And, it could be the ultimate weapon to instill fear in in the world's population. So, finally, a state legislator understands abortion biblically. Wyoming legislature approves bill to ban abortions on babies from conception. So that's a beautiful thing. Things that are happening in the world aren't always wicked and evil. We are definitely seeing a battle for the souls of humanity in so many ways. You're definitely seeing a battle between the the Christian right, if you want to call it that, and the liberal left on a regular basis. But it's really a global situation, a global battle, global power struggle. The forces of good versus the force of evil. And you have leftist politics all over the world. You have conservative politics all over the world in different countries, and sometimes an entire country is dominated by leftist, socialist, communist politics, and it's unfortunate because it's very much anti-biblical. I mean, in the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx, it says that religion is the opiate of the masses, right? So, does that is that a favorable opinion of things like Christianity or Judaism or people that believe in the Hebrew roots of the faith or the Messianic tradition? No, it's not. I mean, it's really atheistic in orientation. To believe in no, you know, no, no creator of the universe. You don't believe in anything. You believe in power of the state and the government, and that's pretty much it. So sad, very sad. But is this good enough in Yahweh's eyes? Does a child at 15 weeks constitute a human being with an eternal soul? Sentiment against abortion upon demand seems to be strongly trending against the concept of protecting life at conception. Okay. Yeah, to me, this is really important. I mean, it's really important to understand what's happening in the world from a biblical perspective. To protect the innocent. That's from Scripture, and that's what being anti-abortion is all about. I mean, it's really being anti-murder, which is, I mean, thou shalt not kill, you do not murder. That's one of the Ten Commandments, and that's unbiblical. It's not a good thing. So whether or not you believe it just protecting the innocent from Scripture, or that you're believing that abortion is essentially murder, it's all biblical stance that you're taking. So, Pentagon general has admitted that aliens and UFOs may be operating within our solar system. Pentagon UFO chief, alien mothership in our solar system possible. I don't know. I had to admit, it makes me laugh, but it's something I keep an eye on. I mean, it's something obviously is there's a ton of effort to conceal information related to UFOs by the U.S. government, all the different governments all over the world, and there's just been so much hype oriented, or um, associated with the UFO phenomena and aliens and things of that nature, and all the movies and books and research, and there's a lot to it, and it might definitely be part of the end times scenario where maybe some kind of fake UFO landing situation is orchestrated. Who knows? I don't know. To me, it's all about global population control. It's all about implementing a world empire that the anti-Messiah can rise to power and rule over. So, if it takes UFOs and aliens to scare the hell out of people, then that's part of maybe what we're going to see in the future. So, I'm not sure, but I definitely think it's a huge part of this equation, factoring in environmentalism, climate change, UFOs, um, global gun control legislation, things of that nature. So, planned supernatural signs and wonders. Again, maybe these things are going to happen. With all the different technologies that exist, a lot of things can be made manifest. I've seen videos where they do this something fake, deep fake, I think it's called, where with technology now, they can take anybody and make them say anything and make it very believable because it's all orchestrated through CGI. So they can take somebody like myself and make it sound like I'm saying things that I never said ever, but they're using technology to orchestrate that false representation of people. So who knows? Anything's possible today, really. Um, Taiwan's military is said to be bracing for a Chinese blockade. Military braces for a blockade by China. Why did America never give nuclear weapons to Taiwan? I don't know. Would you be surprised that the Ukraine Biden Russia story is deeply embedded in the bribing of Joe Biden? Silicon Valley Bank's Biden connection comes out. It turns out the bank was vital to climate tech sector. Totally, completely believable. For the love of money is the root of all evil. It's from scripture. Bank bailouts lead to government control. Never let a good crisis go to waste. Bank bailouts leading to government controlled banking. There you go. So Silicon Valley Bank was backstopped by the federal government, and which could definitely have caused a lot more issues. But at the same time, it's just putting power and more power into the hands of the federal government, which I don't agree with at all whatsoever. I think the federal government is an abomination. Fortunately, there's still good people working in our government, but realistically, the entire infrastructure, everything said and done, is just a weapon against the American population and the world's population. And America's at the forefront of the implementation of the New World Order, um, which I honestly see as simply a world empire. That's I think, the simplest way to put it into perspective. The New World Order is kind of abstract concept, which doesn't really paint a picture of what exactly it is. But a New World Order would be a world empire, which never existed before in the entire history of the world. So America is reaching a tripwire, a tipping point with Israel. Democrats' attitudes towards Israel reach a tipping point. Okay. Um, Obviously, a lot of people are taking the side of the Palestinians and Israel. Trump was very pro-Israel, and which was nice to see. But who knows? This is the thing. You cannot get away from scripture, from prophecies. The prophecies will be fulfilled, and unfortunately, the Palestinians are not on the right side of prophecy, and it's sad, but they're probably going to be completely annihilated. So the Palestinian people are spewing the self same attitudes with which their predecessors were consumed. Just putting it in perspective, and in the superheroes of scripture part of the broadcast this week, I went into the realities of the events of the Passover and what led up to the Passover and after the Passover, and the ancient Hebrews being liberated from bondage, slavery to the Pharaoh and the ancient Egyptians, and how the Father, the creator of the universe, intervened on their behalf in a million different ways. And the Jewish people living in Jerusalem and Israel right now are descendants of the ancient Hebrews. And not all of the descendants of the ancient Hebrews are living in Israel, but there are several million living in that part of the world, right? Which is only part of the original promised land promised to the ancient Hebrews. So when it comes to protecting the modern day descendants of the ancient Hebrews, the Most High will most definitely protect them. And anybody coming up against the ancient Hebrew or the modern day descendants of the ancient Hebrews, they're going to have a problem. They're going to have a lot of blood on their hands, and they are not going to be very happy with the results of taking up arms against the chosen people, the original chosen people of the Most High. So, and the Palestinians are right at the forefront of that. So, what are the Palestinians thinking? Okay, the Palestinian people are spewing the self same attitudes with which their predecessors were consumed. What are the Palestinians thinking? 77% of Palestinians choose violence or chose violence. Only 18% of the Palestinians chose the path of negotiations. Okay. So I'm not saying that every single Palestinian is wicked and evil, but at the same time, the stance that, um, they have the right to the land that was promised to the ancient Hebrews, I do not agree with whatsoever. And that is underlying the tension in that region of the world is the fact that the Palestinians were essentially kicked out of what they consider their homeland, to and they essentially lost the battle, in terms of how the the nation of Israel was founded in 1948, which is, in my opinion, was a fulfillment of ancient prophecy that the ancient Hebrews were going to be dispersed and returned to their land ultimately in the latter days, and that's what we've seen happen. And the their ownership of that land in terms of what was given to them by the Most High, what was given to them as far as the rights to that land is really what the basis of that whole contentious reality is all about. Who has ownership of the land of Israel? Who has ownership of Jerusalem? Who are the rightful heirs or the owners of that region of the world? And it just depends on your perspective of the Bible and history. So my opinion is that it's the the modern day descendants of the ancient Hebrews have the right to that land. It's their land. It was given to them as the promised land from the Most High, and that's it. And they are the rightful heirs to that kingdom, so to speak. Appraisal of Joe Biden's foul deeds are putrid indeed. Joe Biden guilty of foul deeds. Some individual NATO members announced the sale of the exceedingly destructive deadly uranium with which Western tanks are equipped. What is depleted uranium? Radiation risks explained after Putin's warning to UK over tank shells for Ukraine. The whole world is shaking with birth pangs to give birth to the anti-Messiah. Okay. I mean, there's definitely a lot of things happen in the world that are, to me, signs of the end times. I mean, if you don't, absolutely I believe this for a very, very long time that we are living in the end times. I mean, I think it's undeniable at this time. And okay, so Mother Gaia Earth is being introduced to a waiting population. Not sure what that means. Elevating the planet over the people. Was Texas Governor Abbott aware of this military intelligence when he ordered the National Guard into military service at the wall that many hundreds of military aged Chinese men are suddenly disembarking at border checkpoints? Police, police our borders, not the globe. Busloads of Chinese illegal immigrants released in Texas by Biden border agents. Yeah, I mean, maybe maybe there's an invasion at the southern border. It seems like there are Chinese individuals that are entering the U.S. I just think there's just so many different things happening simultaneously right now. You have China, Taiwan, that the tension there, the Israelis, Palestinians, North Korea, South Korea. You know, people never talk about, but India and Pakistan, and the tensions at the southern border in the U.S. and things that are happening in California, even just the different, just the degradation of the culture in the different larger cities in California. I mean, there's just a lot of different things happening simultaneously right now that are not good for business, so to speak, that are very problematic. But it's looking at it from a bigger picture perspective that it's overwhelming for people when it's just too much happening at the same time. A lot of different conflicts, a lot of different Um, in the Bible, it says that there will men's hearts will fail them out of fear. Um, and when there's just too much to handle, it's too overwhelming. Too many things happen at the same time that it's overwhelming and it's paralyzing too. But there's a lot going on right now, and it's sad. Is Z Biden planning to suddenly produce a foreign army to invade us from our southern underbelly? I don't know. Um, American city suburban way of life continues to be assaulted, so that the joy of city living will systematically be eliminated. Rampant crime, public drug use, vagrancy are part of basic city life. Democrats argue. Okay, whatever. Um, Cracker Barrel latest business to flee Democratic run Portland over crime, homelessness, shutdowns. Okay. Rail train derailed to avoid plunging into Seattle Puget Sound. Porn is paving the way to an American Sodom. Church leaders are not immune. 15 mind blowing statistics about pornography in the church. Statistics reveal that the increase in the amount and reach of pornography cannot be ignored, but is not just a problem affecting them. Women, teenagers, and children are also being caught in the web of pornography at alarming rates. It's sad. I mean, pornography literally destroys people's lives. It's everywhere. It's all over the internet. Um, there's, I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, it's in all kinds of shows and movies and everything, and it's sad. I mean, it's really okay. Here's a note, and I want people to be aware of this. Special final appeal, financial appeal. Our ministry is in dire straits. Cutting edge ministries truly need your help today. Our total income from donations, but bookstore sales continues to fall below minimum levels for the fourth straight year, but our daily readership remains very steady. They reach a lot of people, this ministry. And if you can help support them, cuttingedge.org, please do. And yeah, I mean, if you can help them out in any way, this would be great. So please, cuttingedge.org, www.cuttingedge.org, please go on the site and, please help them out in any way you can. All right. So, uh, kind of wrap this up here. A couple more newsletters to go through. I got really far behind because I was out of the loop for a second there. Democratic Manhattan DA, District Attorney Alvin Bragg issued a criminal indictment against Donald Trump. Manhattan judge to put gag order on Donald Trump. Okay. No, Noted, yes, George Soros supported corrupt district attorney Alvin Bragg, whatever. Trump's indictment stinketh to high heaven. The indictment reeks. Okay. As America slipped so quickly from a moral supernation to only a banana boat republic in less than 4 years, banana time for the rule of law, right? Palestinians attack Jews on the Temple Mount. Yes, we will still write in blood the map of the one homeland and one nation. Netanyahu's statement on the overnight Temple Mount riot. As usual, Yahweh has the final word in the judgment of the Palestinians raging worthlessly against the Jew. Yes, we will still. America is at the point where propaganda overtakes truth regarding gun violence. Why does this keep happening? We don't have a gun problem. We have a liberal and libertarian problem. If Trump is evil incarnate, then why do his enemies have to falsify his crimes? Even Stormy Daniels does not believe that Trump should go to jail for paying her hush money. Is the total planned collapse of the banking system near? The non-bailout commences. Total system collapse temporarily averted with emergency liquidity flood. Three U.S. banks collapsed last week. Silvergate, Silicon Valley Bank, and Signature. Contagion took hold and quickly began to. This is actually a few weeks ago, but it's you know recent enough that it definitely still needs to be addressed. I'm sure people listening here, however few people there are aware of these events happening. I mean, I was definitely aware of it as soon as it happened. I was really shocked that it happened, but the entire U.S. banking system would have collapsed starting today if not for the FDIC jumping in and um, offering to rescue even non-insured depositors at SVB. Okay, it's a big problem. I mean, there's these. I mean, the fact that SVB, which is a huge bank in the whole area of Silicon Valley and California, and is tied into so many different industries in California, to go under as quickly as it did is shocking. I mean, a problem. A lot of it had to do with like crypto holdings and things of that nature, but it's really just bad business is what brought down Silicon Valley Bank. But again, tied into so many different technology companies, so much of the vineyard industry in Southern California was tied in with Silicon Valley Bank, and it was a very serious problem, by causing reverberations all throughout the economy. the financial system. The financial system right now is, in a lot of ways fragile. Some people want to say it's strong, and all these different other banks were unaffected by the demise of Silicon Valley Bank because they're well capitalized and they're prepared for things like this happening. But it's we definitely live in dangerous times. Everything's susceptible, and a lot of things happening simultaneously all over the world that are causing things to buckle. And there's so many different mechanisms in the global economy, that with the Fed's monetary tightening policy that's been happening, the Federal Reserve, the America's central bank, which sets the precedent for the global economy and other central banks, essentially, the global tightening process that's unfolded to counter inflation has caused different parts of the financial system to essentially buckle as a result. I mean, when you're tightening up the monetary supply, you're raising interest rates, with the intent to crush demand to induce a type of recession to bring prices down. You're essentially paralyzing credit in a lot of ways. I mean, as far as like mortgage rates, I mean, mortgage rates, I think we're up to like 7.5%, whereas a little over a year ago, a year and a half ago, they were down to like 3%, 3.5%. So to double, um, pretty much within a year is pretty traumatic. I mean, as far as these banks that rely on lending practices, to lend out money and make money off the money that they lend out, and to paralyze credit in a lot of ways is causing a lot of components of the financial system to buckle under the pressure of the reduction in revenue. That's definitely happening. You're not necessarily freezing credit, but you're inhibiting credit from from carrying out its normal process, essentially. With the different banks, they need to be able to lend money. I mean, that's where they the whole borrowing and lending with all the different banks, intrabank lending, or with corporations. I mean, to limit that money supply, starts having an overall impact, and it's definitely happening. You're definitely seeing these underlying mechanisms, these underlying components. I mean, you look at major banks like Deutsche Bank, basically, essentially, um, almost failing completely, or Credit Suisse. I mean, that's a problem. These are some of the biggest banks in the world, international banking empires. So you start seeing banks like that start to go under, or in the process of going under, even though they get backstopped, by different governments. It could be essentially almost a nationalization process that's really happening with different banks to basically take over these private banks. I don't know, but see how it unfolds. But these are just not good signs. They're not good signs of the time. So Palestinians still plan to destroy their own holy sites and blame it on the Jew for the second night in a row. Violent clashes erupt at Al Aqsa Mosque. So this is on the Temple Mount, where a lot of the people that go to a lot of the pilgrims, so to speak, that go to Jerusalem this time of year for Ramadan, or for Passover. Jewish people or Muslim people going to that area. There's a lot of tension, like builds up, and there's been a lot of conflict, and even at the northern border, there've been missile strikes against Israel from Turkey, in Lebanon, I believe, or Lebanon specifically, uh, off the top of my head. Sorry. Russia declares we are now in hot conflict with the United States. Russia declares now in hot conflict. Yeah. Apostasy continues raging to new levels worldwide. 25% of all Anglican churches are no longer holding regular Sunday services. 1 in 4 Anglican churches no longer holding regular Sunday service. Okay. So, I mean, everything that's happening in the world is definitely, um, unfolding in so many ways, with different people and different faiths, and you know, different faiths are being compromised or just not holding up in the time. I mean, these times are important to stay strong, to be to stay believers, not to um, become compromised. I mean, I many times, even recently, I felt compromised myself. I mean, I definitely have been having struggles in different ways, and it's important to stay strong and stay a believer, and no matter what happens, if all your possessions are taken away from you, you have no money, you have eternal life in the Messiah, and that's all that really matters. That's all that matters. So I don't care about what's happening in the world in a lot of ways. I mean, it's going to happen. It's part of prophecy. It's part of Yahweh's plan for this world, and the events are just again part of his plan. If there's a nuclear World War III, that's part of Yahweh's plan. If there's a global economic collapse, that's part of Yahweh's plan. If there's uh, the enslavement of the masses by via the mark of the beast, or the mass murder of people that refuse to take the mark of the beast, that's all part of Yahweh's plan. And it doesn't matter what happens, everything's said and done, that we always have eternal life in the Messiah because we're believers in the Messiah. That's what the most important thing is, to believe, to stay believers. Don't wobble. No, stay strong in your belief and your faith, no matter what happens, no matter if everything they have is taken away from you. It doesn't matter if all your friends and family are murdered. I mean, obviously you're going to be affected, but you need to stay strong and continue on to preach the word, and be a believer, in a very strong way. Right now, you need to stay strong. That's the most important thing. So, all right, I think we're relatively caught up here, but I hope maybe you got something out of this analysis of current events, and hopefully people are staying strong in the faith, because that's very important right now. Amen. Hallelujah.